Yeah.
I have a few screenshots to share.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll
I've
try
saw I've seen
to.
that I've seen a build that what I'm assuming is the latest build that got sent through I think yesterday. Damien sent through that to me, so I've had a play of that. Um, and yeah, I'm not sure exactly how you guys would normally do these things, but I've got a bunch of notes that we can go through and feedback that I can give, and then we can kind of go from there. And ultimately, like I'm here for you guys as well. So if you've got any questions or comments or anything like that, obviously we can go through that. But okay, let's have a look.
quite honestly, the progress has been very slow. So this isn't actually me working with the others. It's me working with someone else.
Okay.
Um, on these cabins.
Yep.
So what you saw in the cabin was very like it was like sort of like a blockout and
Yeah, just a placeholder kind of gray box sort of.
and
Yeah.
yeah, our modeler for that has been very slow on it. So like
Okay.
I've had to outsource some help because the progress is honestly like pretty slow. And
Yeah.
yeah, uh
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
mean we get some feedback from you now, but yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
cool. Yeah, well, it
yeah
looks like
very early.
the others maybe aren't making it, so maybe we'll just get started. Yeah, so just to introduce myself, my name's David. I'm the creative director at Liminal. Been there for about 5 odd years now, and uh, I've been kind of like the lead on the platform as well. So kind of everything that has been on there has kind of gone through me just to some extent. So yeah, so as I said, I'm not really sure exactly how these things run, but I've got a bunch of feedback that we can go through, and you can ask any questions or anything like that. Um, I just wanted to clarify one thing, just firstly, just with the because I haven't been fully across the full like stages of development of this. In your initial concept, you had mentions of like multiple environments and multiple audio tracks. I just wanted to see, is that still the case, or has that kind of been scrapped?
Um, that's ultimately been scrapped, but
Okay.
we're gonna try and just go for that one for the meantime.
Yeah.
But
No, that's good. Yeah, I was definitely
yeah,
gonna if that wasn't the case, I was gonna highly suggest that just because yeah, it's really important just to you know it's better to nail one thing and really get that over the line than it is to focus on the multiple stuff. As cool as it may be, it's not really necessary. And I think if you do nail that kind of one core environment and audioscape, it'll lead to the best result. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to check that first. So yeah, as I said, I've got some notes, so we can just go through them. Um, so yeah, I saw that you shared some screenshots of more work in progress of the cabin. That's really good. So one of the big things was the cabin environment. Obviously, as you said, it's quite placeholder. It's a bit of a in a block out sort of grey box sort of stage. Sorry. Um, so yeah, one of my biggest concerns with that environment at the moment, which is maybe lessened a bit by seeing the screenshots, is it didn't really feel like a train cabin or card or anything. It doesn't have that like vibe. Obviously, you've got the big window and stuff, but if you took out that window and just put someone in there, you wouldn't really know where you are. And I think grounding people in that environment is really key and really important to kind of sell the experience of
yeah,
being on that train. So seeing your screenshots and seeing some of that progress, it's definitely going more in that direction. Like you've got stuff over the top, where you might put your baggage. You've got various details like that that kind of really ground it more in what that actual environment would be. So my number one uh, feedback for that whole interior environment is really just selling that selling that environment, selling that location, and being true to what you would find in a real life scenario, to the point where I would literally find a real world reference and try and copy that one-to-one as much as possible. It's definitely, using reference is definitely something that is extremely important in nailing that. But yeah, I can see from the screenshots that you're heading more in that direction, and I can absolutely understand, the difficulties with, people maybe not have doing as much work as you wanted, or progress being slower than you wanted. So that's understandable. But yeah, nailing that interior environment is really going to be important, and not just the kind of the aesthetics and stuff, but also other things like the scale of things. Like for example, the again, I'm assuming most, maybe even all of the stuff in there is placeholder. I'm not really sure, but like you've got this kind of massive chair, and you're sort of like floating well above the chair. You've got like, suitcases that are kind of like, quite large, and plates that are quite large, and just various things like that, where the overall scale and feel of things is a bit off. So yeah, that would be my kind of main thing to really focus on and nail, that I think is lacking the most in the experience. Um, the other
Actually,
thing,
about that,
yep,
yeah, I've
yep,
been having some trouble trying to actually like get the what do you call, the scale right, because like
yep,
sometimes when I get into liminal, it's like the guardian moves around. I mean
yep,
not like, and also like sometimes it's well above the thing. Sometimes I've gone too low and I've sunken into the and I like, I don't know what is like, and obviously like the temp, like I have to have the VR on while playing with the
yep,
scale, and then sometimes even
yep.
that's sort of wrong, and I'm not really sure what
All
is
right.
like the right sort of thing or how to get it right.
Yeah, scale in VR is hard, and it's something that even occasionally we still have difficulties with, because a lot of the time things in editor will look perfectly fine, and 2D they'll look great, and then as soon as you jump into VR, the scale is completely off, and um, even when you model things to a real world scale of what should be accurate in real life, even then, sometimes things don't feel quite right. So you're absolutely right. You just need, like, it has to be done in the headset. Obviously, you don't need to work in the headset, but you just kind of need to keep checking repeatedly in the headset to make sure things feel right. Because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, is does it feel right or not. You can look at it in Unity all you want. And it's also like the scale of the objects, but also the distance and relation between objects. So you might, oh, someone's just trying to join. Lachlan, there we go. I'll just admit him. So you might, have the objects are all the right scale, but you've got like, 2-3 meter gaps or something between them, which just feels wrong. So in terms of the height, though, so if you've set up your Guardian correctly, and I can understand that can, change and get reset sometimes. You should be able to, because yeah, when you're put into the scene, and reset your view, it should have your head height at whatever you've set the head height of the VR avatar in Unity. And I think like by default, for example, we put it 1.7 meters, I think, is the off the ground. So you'll see like the Y translate will be like 1.7 by default if you've never touched it. Um, but that is typically for a standing height.
Okay.
Obviously, not everyone is 1.7 meters tall, but vaguely speaking, a lot of it falls within that. So if you want someone to kind of be sitting at that seat, for example, you might need to lower it to like 1.2 meters or something, as an example. But again, that's something you'll just need to play with, because it depends on the height of the chair. It depends on, the scale of the room and all that stuff. So there's no easy answer, but yeah, just getting in VR, you can literally put your headset on and like reset your view, and then shift the white position of the camera up and down until you kind of vaguely sort of get it right. And it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be close, that it doesn't feel wrong, really, is the important thing.
Yeah.
Yep. And one other thing that I wanted to bring up with the environment. So I know in your previous early builds you had the user sitting in the seat, and the off to the right was the window. And in the latest build, you've got the user kind of facing straight towards the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I can understand why you've done that, and I think there's pros and cons to that. I'm assuming like the pro is, obviously you're not turning your head to the side and you're able to kind of focus on, the stuff going uh, by much more easier. But I think the issue with it, well, there's two issues. One is, again, going back to the previous point where I was saying, really nailing the feel of being in that environment is key. It takes away from what you would find in real life, because again, if you were to be in one of these carts, typically you're going to be sitting in a seat with the window to your side, and it really takes away from that grounding in reality. And then, sorry, just one sec. And then the other main thing, which is maybe a bigger issue, I'm not sure, is motion sickness in VR is a very important thing to minimize wherever you can, and having that fixed view with the stuff scrolling past, I think can very easily lead to motion sickness in people that are susceptible to it. So, Lachlan's rejoining. So I would probably, in my opinion, go back to roughly the sort of position where you had it before, with the window to your side. But yeah, sorry, Gio, did you have your hand up then?
Yeah, I was wondering. We're using one reference for the cabin. And Andrew, do you have with you the reference that we can show to David?
I've honestly abandoned that reference because I know we've been following it. But honestly, like at this point, we haven't really worked that much on it that I feel like I've jumped ship. Like I've honestly, I know it's a bit selfish for me at this point, but like I feel like we have very little work done that I've jumped ship. I'm working with my brother on a lot of these models, and
Right.
we're thinking the same thing that David's talking about here, and that the original concept was a bit like, and Damien as well, how it's like a bit rich. We're still going a bit with that, but like have you seen the screenshots? The screenshots are a bit like the.
Oh no, I haven't seen it. It's on the chat.
Yeah, it's
The ones
chat.
Okay, I will check it. Because
yeah. We'll send
thought
you
we
a
were
different.
working
We'll
with-
send you a different reference, but yeah, I thought the same thing too, when yeah, the same thing that David was talking about. That's why like these new screenshots are sort of, I think, how we should base it on.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're, broadly speaking, looking good, and it is looking more like what that environment would look like. So I think that's always good to go in that direction. And yeah, I'm like, honestly, I'm sure you probably could find some references where you are looking straight ahead at a thing. But as I said, maybe my biggest concern is the motion sickness thing, which I think could be an issue for a lot of people. But yeah, just make sure you're on the same page with, what environment you want to go. And if that does mean changing direction and pivoting to something, that's a bit more realistic to, changing what you had originally, that's fine. Like you can, you can update it and go in a different direction. Just make sure you're kind of all on the same page and aiming towards the same stuff for that. But yeah, broadly speaking, I think the screenshots that you've just posted look more in the kind of direction that I'd be aiming for. Actually, I'll just say just quickly with those screenshots, you've got that like the kind of the mesh thing above where you put your bags or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just be a little bit careful with any like really fine, thin detail. Like the stuff you've posted there may be fine. It's a bit hard to say, and it depends how far away from the user it is. But if you're getting like really detailed kind of like mesh stuff, and it's not quite in that direction yet, but it's close, you might run into a lot of aliasing issues and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. But I think you can probably get away with what you've got there. And that'll actually bring me to the next point, which is the exterior stuff. So broadly speaking, I think the exteriors come a long way, which is really good, and I think it's progressed a bit from the previous build that I'd seen. I don't think I've seen every build you've sent through, but I had seen a couple. So there's been a lot of progress there, which is good. One of the biggest issues with the exterior stuff at the moment is just what I was saying with the, trying to avoid with the mesh thing is there is a lot of aliasing on a lot of the stuff. So a lot of really thin, small details. For example, like the masts on a boat, or the ropes, or like stuff like that between the stairs, or just various things like that. Where if you look at it in VR, there's a lot of aliasing on those small kind of thin details on the distant objects. So I think doing everything you can to reduce that is going to be really important, because it's very distracting at the moment on that exterior stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that would be probably the number one thing to focus on, the exterior environment. Other than that, I think, as I said, it's coming along pretty nicely out there. There's a few like odd placements of things, like there's the occasional like floating rock and stuff like that. Just kind of takes you out of it a bit. There's stuff like there's kind of like the rocks on the shore that are connecting like the sand and the sorry, is it sand? I'm just trying to remember.
Rock. Like a cliff.
Yeah, there's these rocks that are like a kind of a different art style from everything else. There's sort of like that low poly, faceted sort of untextured look, whereas other things kind of the more kind of toon style aesthetics. So just making sure that everything's kind of consistent on that exterior in terms of art style. And then I think the other thing with the exterior is it felt very noisy. Like there's just like this constant wave of boats. Like there's at any one point in time you see like maybe like 10 boats on the screen or something like that. And it just feels like a very kind of noisy environment. And again, maybe not something that would be super realistic, like seeing that many boats and rocks and stuff like that. So I think maybe if you can just turn down that a little bit, I think would help a lot. It would also make it feel a bit less repetitive than just kind of like constantly seeing like boats there. That's just my opinion on that. It just felt like, I was just being overwhelmed by this constant like flow of boats, and they're all kind of going in the exact same direction, and it felt like, I don't know, maybe there was like a boat race or something going on outside. But yeah, that's just my opinions on the exterior. Is really focusing on that aliasing, some Z fighting as well on like that big kind of house, whatever you call it, structure. There's a lot of Z fighting meshes like clashing there. So just cleaning up all that stuff I think will be very helpful. Are there any questions on the exterior stuff, or any like thoughts
actually.
on that?
So I'm thinking that, so so you're just saying we should move the chair from like facing it to like to the side, right? So
I think so, yeah. I think that would be a much more like grounded, a realistic room, cart, sorry, to be in, and I think that would be the way to go, and help with the motion sickness.
a few issues I had with the previous versions of doing that was that like there'll
Yep.
be because you're sitting on the side, you can see a lot of what's further ahead, right? And I have to
Yeah,
like
right.
sort of drag everything like further back, or also like have to, and then in doing that, things I'd have to put it all the way back and have to like slowly come in, and it's just like I'm
Right.
thinking how we should deal with that. Like, is there some
Yep.
sort of technique we should probably do?
Well, yeah, I can get that. So you would need to have stuff. So if you're facing forward, the way that you're facing, that stuff would need to kind of spawn in further away to not have that kind of pop in effect. But you would also then have the stuff behind you that can pop out a lot earlier, because you don't need to see as far to
Okay.
the right. But so there are a few things, like you might be able to block the view slightly with the curtain, for example. Maybe that might help. You could also look at doing like having fog outside, and just having if you have like, let's just say like a gray fog or blue fog or whatever, and then the skybox is that kind of same color as that fog at that point. anything that is then coming in through that, you won't notice the pop in as much, because the fog will blend with the skybox, and then anything that's kind of coming in from that distant view will kind of fade in essentially through that fog, as opposed to being something that like is popping in the distance. That might help a bit. Other than that, yeah, I'm not too sure. It's a bit of a tricky one, with the fact that it's like a perfectly straight, the exterior is like this straight line, whereas if, for example, you had it being like a sort of curved thing that kind of curved off to the side around, and you were on like a curved track, I guess, you would kind of hide that a lot, because at that point where it starts curving, you would then lose the vision of what's around there. But I know setting that up is probably going to be a big change from what you've already got, so that may not be feasible. But yeah, I would look at like, trying to have a fog distance that is, at the point that you need it to be to block the visions of things coming in, and then do what you can with the. And also, if you have them like sitting a little bit away from the side of the window, that again will give them less vision at the distance. So yeah, I don't know. There's probably a few things that you could play around with, but I agree it is a little bit of a tricky one to fully solve that.
Yeah.
Cool. And then the last kind of main thing is the audio. So again, I'm not sure if the audio in there is intended to be final or not. I'm assuming it probably isn't.
Not really.
So I think the audio is going to be really key for this. There's like, I know you guys posted in your concept document like a few YouTube videos, and where it's like 3 hour long on a train ride, and some of them are literally just like a 2D image with the audio going, and I reckon people could even watch that with their eyes closed, because of how important that audio is and how much of a focus that is. So really nailing that's going to be key. So currently there's again, I'm assuming the stuff in this placeholder, but I'll comment on it anyway. So there's this kind of like weird, I don't even know how to describe it, like distorted. It almost sounds like a balloon stretching.
Yeah,
like this kind of
I think the person recording that was moving around on his seat. That's what I think it was.
Okay.
That's what I think it
sounds
was.
like leather stretching or something. Or
Yeah.
Okay. So just removing that, obviously. There's a few other things to note, which again, if you replace the track, may not apply, but I'll comment on it anyway. So like the track didn't loop properly, so there was like a very audible cut where the track kind of ended and then started again. If you replace that track, obviously that may or may not be an issue, but just making sure that whatever you do kind of put in at the end loops properly. And if you can't get it to loop for whatever reason, you can just extend the track to be like a 10-minute thing that doesn't have a loop point. That is fine to do, because sometimes, depending on what the track is, getting it to loop perfectly without any noticeable pop or scene can be a little bit challenging, but that'll be important. And then just really focusing on getting a kind of like almost a rhythmic, repetitive kind of the chugga of the train. Like it's kind of it almost puts you in like a trance sort of. It's this like soothing, repetitive, kind of hypnotic sort of sound, which I think is going to be important. If you can kind of nail that, I think, as I said, you could literally almost like close your eyes and get a really, really nice experience just being like listening to that audio and being immersed in that. So that's the takeaway from that, really. So just to kind of cap it off, so the three main things are the interior, which kind of needs, in my opinion, and it sounds like that's what's happening, at a full overhaul, and really focusing on polishing that up. The audio is the second thing, and then the exterior I think is coming along really nicely, and it just needs a lot of work on removing the like all the artifacts, like all the aliasing, all the z-piting, cleaning up a few like floating objects, and just making that generation a bit nicer with, maybe reducing the count of boats or stuff like that. But yeah, the interior environment and the audio are kind of like the things that are kind of holding it back at the moment. And I'd really be focusing, the good amount of time on that, in my opinion. Yeah, so that's my comments on it. I think it's coming along really well from where I'd seen it previously. As I said at the start, I'm not really sure how these things normally go. So if you guys have like questions, I'm happy to, sit here and answer any, or if you have stuff that you think of later, you can always message me on that partner Slack, and shoot me a question, or you can just ask in the general chat too. That's fine. But yeah, is there anything you guys wanted to talk about or wanted to ask or know about or anything like that?
Not really. We have about less than 3 weeks left.
Yeah.
So yeah, keeping the scope to one environment. That's a like a big like a suggestion that you highly suggest.
Yeah, especially at this point, like even at the start, I probably would have recommended doing that, but especially with 3 weeks left, I really, really would just nail one environment then, as opposed to trying to focus on more. At the end of the day, like it's a short experience. A lot of the stuff on the platform is, it's like 5 minutes long or something. And yes, it's nice to have, variants and stuff like that, but it's not really needed, to be honest. And if you nail one environment, that's going to be infinitely better than, half-assing 3 environments or something like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would definitely nail one environment, one audio track, keep it all confined. You've got 3 weeks left, which isn't a huge amount of time. It is and it isn't. You can get a lot done, but it's also, you're pretty pressed for time. So yeah, that would definitely be my advice.
Yeah. That's,
cool.
That's about it from me.
Anything else, or any other questions, or?
Oh, actually, yeah. One more.
Yep.
So I was listening to I was playing that version, and even that has sort of like a bit of like ambience and a bit of that chug. But I felt weird that like it doesn't really shake. The car doesn't shake. But I was thinking, would that like sort of affect the whole, like, what do you call it? Like getting like motion sickness and yeah, things like that.
Yeah, we've experimented with camera shaking in VR, because obviously in a non-VR game, having camera shake on impacts and hits and any kind of camera shake really helps sell impact a lot, and it's unfortunately something that you can't really do in VR. Well, we've tested it a lot, and it anytime we try and do it, it either causes technical issues or it causes motion sickness issues or anything like that. So unfortunately, I'd probably have to avoid it. But from my point of view, I didn't really think it would have been that big of a deal, because the ambient audio in there, like the underlying stuff other than the kind of leather stretching or whatever it is, I think was a pretty good start. It actually sounded pretty decent. It needs a bit more layers and stuff to it, but I think that was a good starting point. But I didn't personally think it was an issue that when there was a bit of chugging, there isn't the camera shake to kind of go along with that. So I probably wouldn't worry about that. It's just the nature of the technical side that you can't really do that well. So I'd probably avoid that. Maybe just in the audio, avoid doing like super extreme noises to kind of minimize that disconnect. Would help. But yeah,
that's about it.
Cool. All right, well, yeah, I think we can probably wrap it up. Again, feel free to shoot me any questions on Slack. If you want to personally PM me, that's fine.
Yep.
Or if you want to write in the channel, that's also good. And yeah, good luck with the last few weeks of getting stuff out the door. Hopefully you're able to wrap it up. And I think generally speaking, it's coming along well. It's progressed a fair bit. So good luck with it all. And yeah. Cool.
All right.
Thank you very much, David.
Yeah. Cool. No worries. Nice to meet you all as well. Have a good one.
Nice to meet you too. You too, man.
All right.
Thank you very much.
No worries.